All right, well, sticking with the AI story, Nvidia's price target hiked to $190 from $165 over at Bank of America. You can see the stock is up about 2.5%. Right now, Bank of America's Vivek Arya saying a generational opportunity is still ahead for the company. Our very own Brian Sozzi spoke with the analyst behind the call. Here's what they had to say.
We are in front of a generational opportunity because it's not every day you go and get a chance to re-architect the plumbings, right, of the computing infrastructure. This is what we saw back in the late 80s when the internet started. There was a small movement in the Department of Defense, and then gradually it reached the commercial stage. And every year there were questions about, what are the returns on investment? But what we saw during that nearly 10 to 20 year phase was new business models get created. Amazon came out, Google came out, Meta came out, right? Microsoft changed its entire way of doing business.
It's fascinating to hear Vivek pointing to some of the things that other analysts point to as the bearish signals for AI moving forward, comparing it to that tech bubble that we saw heading into the early 2000s here, but pointing out kind of the flip side of the argument that all of these big tech companies that are the Magnificent Seven stars we talk about every day were created during that time period. So maybe it's less a case of a bubble that's going to get popped in another case, which could be that we're going to get new names in the space, and Nvidia is going to be the driver of those new names that need their chips.
Yeah, and what also I thought was so interesting, and he said this within this note and further elaborated on this with his conversation with Sozzi earlier this morning, was just how big of a driver these massive hyperscalers are in order for adoption. Obviously, Nvidia, a direct beneficiary, but then when you think about the dominance and dominant role that they play, but as you get more and more money allocated to this space, there's more room for other companies, to your point, to do well. So it's not just Nvidia that's going to shine within the space, but there's lots of reason to be optimistic about AI. He also mentioned the results that we got out from TSMC last week, which certainly helped change a bit of the narrative. We did see a sell-off earlier in the week on the heels of ASML's disappointing guidance. Also some worries about further restrictions or curbs from the Biden administration targeting Middle Eastern companies. But then when you took a look at TSMC's results and the massive amount of demand that they currently are seeing, what their expectations are for quarters to come, that certainly helped ease any of the fears that we had out there on the street. And Maddie, you and I had talked to so many analysts and strategists, portfolio managers over the last several weeks that have remained extremely optimistic about Nvidia. And many are even say that there's no doubt that it's going to be the first company to reach that $4 trillion valuation. So we'll see whether or not the momentum continues.